Can you hear me better now?
Oh, yeah, much better.
Move the tape.
Okay.
All right. I think we're ready to go down. You want to call us to order or call the record?
On record?
All right, let me call to order the City of Lincoln City City Council meeting of Monday, June 8th, 2020, at 6 p.m. Could we have a roll call, Kathy?
Dick Anderson?
Yes.
Judy Casper?
Here.
Deanna Hinton?
Here.
Riley Hoagland?
Here.
Diane Coos?
Here.
Rick Mark?
Here.
And Mitch Parsons?
Here.
Great, thank you. Ron, could you or Richard, before we get started, perhaps explain to the public how we're handling the public hearing testimony tonight, given Zoom and all this, to make sure that the public feels comfortable in having the opportunity for a say?
I can. We have not only our two parts of the agenda for just general public comments, we have public hearings as well. We have set up an email, publiccomment@lincolncity.org, and anybody who'd like to make a comment during those public hearings, please send it to that email address. I'm tracking that throughout all of the meeting, so if they come in, I'll make sure that they will be read, and I will go ahead and read them.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Of course, David Twigg is also in the council chambers. If people do not have email, they can go to the council chambers and they will be given an opportunity to speak.
Oh, great. Thank you for that reminder. That's good. All right. I'm going to, if it's all right, suspend with the Pledge of Allegiance. We have, like to add to the agenda by adding an item under the consent agenda, which is the minutes of the regular City Council meeting of April 13th, 2020. And then I would also like to add over under K, I've been asked to read a Flag Day proclamation. If we could add those two to the agenda. With that, Kathy, I'll go ahead then and have the consent agenda. And once again, the consent agenda is the minutes of the regular council meeting, April 13th, 2020. Those were sent out to the media and sent to you all outside the packet.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I move to approve consent agenda.
All right. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Is that Judy?
Yep.
All right, thank you. And Deanna, you had discussion?
I just had a comment. I sent a question to Kathy to check about the minutes about in the decision box. And I don't know if Kathy can answer, if she knows for a fact that Rick Mark seconded a motion to approve the adoption of resolution 2020-07 with the $6.85 charge per residential customer as stated in the resolution, and if he also voted no. I haven't had
a chance to check it yet, but I will.
Okay, I thought it was Mitch who voted no, my recollection, but I don't know.
I did vote no.
Sounds right to me.
Okay. So with that correction, then would that stand with the motion still amended?
Yes.
Okay. And the second? All right. Okay.
Thank you, Deanna.
Welcome.
Good catch. All those in favor of approval of the minutes, say aye.
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 Hearing and opposed with a nay? Hearing none. Thank you. Okay, let's go then down to comments, public comments, non-public hearing.
Mr. Mayor, I have 6 comments. I might point out that these have come in since your last meeting, and we've just been, we'll include those as though somebody was at the meeting. The first one comes from Laura Jokey. She actually had two. The first one states, mask and hand sanitizers are mandatory for my employees presently, so I completely support that 100% unless they have a doctor's note for their employer. Then they should be assigned away from the public if possible. We have a sign on our door per government compliance that has standard do not enter if you have signs of COVID-19 boilerplate, and also masks required. We have a table right inside the door further explaining things, offering 3 choices of hand sanitizers and cloth masks free or by donation so they can come in even if they forget a mask. We had one man get mad and call my employees a commie for insisting he wear a mask. She turned him away. We would love to have a law to cite. Currently, the only exception to our mask rule is if someone politely explains why they could not wear a mask, and they do not have to go into detail. They just need to be polite, as they are the only person and the only party. We will let them in and then sanitize right afterwards. Other than that, a very rude man. We have had very nice comments about the quality free masks that we offer, and we've been getting about $5 a piece in donation, so that helps offset them. We haven't made a whole lot of money, but people are starting to conscientiously trickle in. I would love to see masks be mandated in town for both locals and guests who are out and about and in the public. There has to be reasonable accommodation for ADA considerations, but I 1,000,000% support it. Thank you. The second email is also from Laura Jokey and some others. It states, greeting council. I would like Lincoln City Council to consider asking our chief of police to consider dynamic and diverse responses for different types of emergency phone calls, including unarmed responses to certain health crises and incidents. In addition, consider disarming our school resource officer, or at least having them dressed down and concealed carry. I would like the city council to ask themselves if we want our police departments armed with weapons of war and military-grade equipment to be used against our city. I believe the Lincoln City Council should ask for a complete inventory from our police department of any military surplus we have received and how the department intends to use it. Don't get me wrong, I care about our police officers' safety and well-being. We are blessed with a wonderful police department and talented chief. We have yet to see any incidents of police brutality in Lincoln City, and if anything, our police deal with difficult, even violent situations regularly as police officers. It's part of their job, but we have to start at our own doorstep if we expect change nationwide. Some of the names who have signed in support of this letter do not believe these requests go far enough and request further evaluation and systematic change to our policing policies, responses, and police culture to ensure a fair and equitable future for all our community. Thank you for your time and thoughtfulness. Signed by 16 community members as listed below. Laura Jokey, Jessica Randolph, Maldonado, Mike Crawley, Rosanna Frigulia, Mike Jokey, John Hakel, Max Smith, Shannon Seifert, Nora Sherwood, Lena Pahuko, Jeremy Luquin, Taj Richardson, Jamie Lee Garrow, and Amber Dawn Howe, Russell Brown, Greg White. These comments come from Leota Barr. Why are we even considering going into phase 2 and 3 when the number of cases is rising on a daily basis? Since it seems people are not smart enough or willing enough to follow the now well-known guidelines to protect themselves and others, it seems extremely irresponsible to open the door to an influx of tourists. It seems extremely irresponsible to open bars of all places where it's almost impossible to observe social distancing. When a human being has a few drinks, many times their inhibitions are cast to the wind. Do you really think they will be as careful as they should be? We're careful. We stay home other than a neighborhood walk with masks at the ready and a necessary trip to the market, masks on in the store. Many people will not wear a mask, and because it's not a law that a mask be worn, so no one can do anything about it. Stop the insanity and stop jeopardizing our health and lives more than is already being done. We are in our late 70s and doing our best to stay healthy and protect ourselves and others. There are lots of people in Lincoln City and County just like us. Quit worshiping the almighty dollar and do your jobs. If you mandate the wearing of masks, then be able to enforce it, please. Please slow down the reopening until the new cases are not on the rise. Brooke and Leota Barr. The next one comes from Benny Shin. Dear Lincoln City Councilors, first we would like to thank the City Council for taking the pandemic seriously. We know this is a difficult time and the Council must make tough decisions. We wish there was a better and easier way to handle this, but we can see that the City Council has been trying their best in these tough times. This email follows up our previous email from last Friday concerning the lodging 24-hour hold. Over the weekend, we had to cap our occupancy to 50% to meet the 24-hour hold rule. Many people, guests or otherwise, said good for you under the assumption that we were sold out. Unfortunately, despite the high traffic and call volume, we had to turn away many guests. We have had to explain to many travelers about the 24-hour hold and why we cannot rent the room during this period. Many travelers were confused and disappointed that they could not enjoy their stay in Lincoln City overnight due to the 24-hour hold rule. We also did independent research about the U.S. and people infected by coronavirus/COVID-19 via hotel rooms. The CDC and OHA did not provide any statistics regarding infections regarding hotel rooms. We could not find any international evidence of people getting sick from hotel rooms. If there is scientific proof that people can get sick from people staying in hotel rooms, then we will understand the 24-hour hold rule. We are cleaning our rooms according to OHA and CDC guidelines. Besides constantly disinfecting high traffic areas, which we are doing, there is not much else we can do besides cleaning to the best of our ability. Finally, there is no other county in Oregon that requires 24-hour hold rule besides Lincoln City and Lincoln County. We would be grateful to see you reconsider the 24-hour hold. Thank you for your time and consideration, Benny Shin. The next one comes from Janet Knight. On May 15th, when the Lincoln County went into phase 1, there were 8 COVID-19 cases in the county. According to the county's website today, there are 94 confirmed cases, but 124 have now been confirmed just at Pacific Seafood. That's exponential growth in a very short time. I deeply hope that the Board of Commissioners will, in your wisdom and concern for our residents, forego the county's application for phase 2 until such time as we can demonstrate that the virus is more under control than it is today, and that we truly have the ability to contact, trace, and contain outbreaks. This is a time to be proactive instead of reactive. If we move into phase 2, travel restrictions will be reduced while gathering size will be increased. All the more reason for large groups of tourists to head to the coast for special occasions and retreats. I do not believe we are ready for this, nor do I understand the rush to phase 2. We are a county of 25% senior citizens, of which I am one, have a huge tourist influx from potentially highly infected areas. many service people who interact daily with the public, and few resources should the virus spike significantly as it is now. I also hope that the Board of Commissioners will now take the lead for our cities on mandatory facial coverings throughout the county. Convening calls with all cities and setting an example for others to follow would greatly help cities to adopt the same policy. Please see this unfolding public health danger for our county residents as an opportunity to prioritize our safety by both holding off on phase 2 application indefinitely and setting the standard for facial coverings. Thank you for your consideration, Janet Knipe. The next is from Ianka Millage. I love Lincoln City and I am a member of a few of your pages. These past couple of months, there has been so much hate for tourists, and I would like this to be openly addressed. I made a post on the Lincoln City homepage and was met with opposition as expected. Do you want us there or no? People who own homes and live out of town have faced this same hate. Lincoln City is a tourism town, and the narrative that the COVID spike is caused by tourists is a lie. Please address this. Thank you. That's it, Mayor.
Great, thank you, Ron. Mr. Twig, are there anybody in the chambers that wanted to speak at this public comment, non-public hearing? I would assume not. Then. Okay. Thanks again, Ron. We'll then go to public hearings, and I think this is, I'll read the script, so bear with me. It is now 6:18. The public hearing for file CPA and ZC 2020-01 is now open. The public hearing concerns a request to amend the comprehensive plan map and zoning map to change the properties addressed at 305 Southwest Ebb Avenue, 315 Southwest Ebb Avenue, 327 Southwest Ebb Avenue, 339 and 343 Southwest Ebb Avenue, 405 Southwest Ebb Avenue, unaddressed 427 Southwest Ebb Avenue, and 887 Southwest 5th Street from a comprehensive plan designation of high density residential district, RM, to recreational commercial district, RC, and from zoning of multifamily residential, RM zone, to recreational commercial, RC zone. The applicants and property owners are Michael B. Test, Gene L. Seal, Eugene L. and Karen L. Stratton, Robert Glanville, Coast Commercial Associates, LLC, Monica Steele, and Eric W. Coates and Robin L. Coates, trustee file, CPA and ZC 2020-01. The Planning Commission held a public hearing on this matter on February 18th, 2020. The Planning Commission's recommendation is included in the council communication in the meeting packet. The council must take a few minutes to cover some preliminary matters and required statements. Does any member of the council wish to declare an ex parte contact, conflict of interest, or bias in this matter? Ms. Hinton.
I don't have a conflict or bias. I just wanted to mention that I did watch the Planning Commission meeting about this.
Okay, thank you. Have you biased based on that? Okay. Okay. Let's see. So here we go to challenges. Does any member of the audience wish to challenge the qualifications of a counselor to participate in this matter? Mr. Hapacello, how would I know if anybody, if Mr. Twig?
Well, if our rules actually, I believe, require that any challenges be filed before the hearing, and we didn't have any. But if there's anyone in the audience, I take it there isn't. They had the opportunity to appear and make an objection.
Okay. Okay, and nobody else? Okay, that's good to hear. And Ron, you're monitoring the public comment email? So you'd know if something came in that way?
Right, nothing's come in, Mayor.
All right, thank you. Okay, so nobody challenges statements. The following statements are required to be made at the commencement of the hearing pursuant to City Code and ORS 197.7635. Staff will now read a list of the applicable substantive criteria for this decision. Is that Anne Marie? Yeah.
It is. The applicable substantive criteria are that the amendment must be in conformance with the Oregon statewide planning goals, the Lincoln City Comprehensive Plan, and the applicable provisions of Lincoln City Municipal Code Title 17.
Great, thank you. All testimony, agreements, and evidence must be directed toward the applicable substantive criteria previously listed or such other criteria in the plan or land use regulations which the person believes applies to the decision. Failure to raise an issue accompanied by statements or evidence sufficient to afford the decision maker and the parties an opportunity to respond to the issue precludes appeal to Luba, the Land Use Board of Appeals, on that issue. Failure on the applicant to raise constitutional or other issues related to proposed conditions of approval with sufficient specificity to allow the decision maker to respond to the issue precludes any action for damages in circuit court. Prior to the end of this hearing, any person who participated may request a continuance to provide additional testimony, argument, or evidence, or request that the record be left open to submit additional written testimony, argument, or evidence. Before the staff presents a report, I would like to summarize the public hearing procedures which have been adopted by the City Council. Generally, the order of proceedings will be as follows: preliminary matters and required statements, staff report, questions of staff, applicant's presentation, those in favor of the application, those opposed, rebuttal by applicant, requests of continuance or to leave the record open, close of the hearing, close of the record, request to submit written argument, deliberations, and decisions. The city has established time limits. The applicant, Pelin, will have 15 minutes and may reserve up to 5 minutes of that time for rebuttal. After the appellant testifies, any person may speak for up to 3 minutes if the Planning Commission has questions. Your time responding to any questions will not be counted in your time limit. If you wish to speak, please write your name, mailing address clearly on the sign-up sheet at the entrance. Please speak directly into the microphone and begin by stating your name. If you have written testimony to submit into the record, please provide a copy to the recorder. Anne Marie, staff, could you present your report?
Thank you, Mayor. As the Mayor has stated, this is a case requesting both a comprehensive plan map amendment and a zone change on 8 tax lots. and the mayor listed the addresses of all of those tax lots and the property owners, so I will not list them again. The site is generally on the west side of Southwest Ebb Avenue, bordered by Southwest 3rd Street to the north and Southwest 5th Street to the south. It has a current comprehensive plan map designation of high density residential district and a zoning district of multiple family residential zone. The site in its entirety totals 2.06 acres. And it is surrounded by residential use and recreation commercial zone to the north, residential use and multiple family residential zone to the south, residential and commercial use and general commercial zone to the east, and the Pacific Ocean to the west. Lincoln City Municipal Code, Section 17.88.050 gives the City Council the authority to decide this case. The appropriate public notices were given, including mailing notices to the property owners within 250 feet of the site, and publication of the public hearing notice in the News Guard. The site is bounded by 3 streets and the Pacific Ocean. The 3 streets are paved. They are public local streets. None have sidewalks, curb gutter, or bicycle lanes. The southwestmost portion of the site is in the distant tsunami evacuation zone. The remainder of the site is in the local tsunami evacuation zone. The southwesternmost portion of the site is in the VE flood hazard zone. The remainder of the site is not in a flood hazard area. The site does not contain any wetlands, significant wetlands, or significant riparian area, nor does it contain any historical or cultural resources. The entire site is in the bluff erosion zone, ranging from the active hazard zone to the high hazard, to the moderate hazard, to the low hazard. The very southeasternmost portion of the site is not in the bluff erosion zone. The city's comprehensive plan provides for major and minor revisions. Major revisions are changes to the comprehensive plan and zoning map that would have widespread and significant impact upon the immediate area of the change. Staff considers this a major revision since the requested change from multiple family residential to recreation commercial zoning would produce a qualitative change in the character of the land itself, the land use itself, from residential commercial to commercial, as well as being a spatial change since the request includes 8 tax lots with different ownerships. As stated previously, the proposal must conform to the statewide planning goals. It must be consistent and compatible with other unamended portions of the comprehensive plan. The staff report lists the allowed uses in the recreation commercial zone. And if the request is approved, the property would be able to be used for any of those uses. That includes vacation rental dwellings. The staff report goes on to give an assessment of the Lincoln City Comprehensive Plan goals, as well as the statewide plan goals. I will not go through each one of those because that would take some time. But I'm open for questions from council.
great. Thank you. So, council, questions of staff regarding the report? And I can see hands up if somebody wants to click that. I'm sorry.
There, now my hand's up.
All right. Deanna, go ahead.
I just have a question and a fuzzy memory, which is, this would be, if approved, a major change to the comprehensive plan and zone maps. So I'm just curious. I know our comprehensive plan is outdated, and so I'm really uncomfortable with making spot zoning changes, and a major one at that. So I guess my question is, how outdated is our comp plan? They're supposed to be done, right? I mean, you can tell me, I'll be quiet. I just, thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. The comprehensive plan that's in place right now was adopted in 1984. It was intended to go through to 2010. It is now 2020, so it is 10 years out of date. There have been amendments to it over the years, a number of them, but there has not been a complete overhaul, which is probably what was intended in 2010.
So, Anne Marie, do you know where that comprehensive plan, because that's revision stands? Hasn't that been worked on and on the drawing board as a completion date?
I do not know where. Well, I can speak for myself, and so since my tenure as director just started in November, it is on my list to begin. I don't have anything that shows where it has begun. It's going to involve some considerable public outreach as the very first step.
All right. Councilor Hinton.
Yeah, my second part to that question is that not only does this have to take place to revise our comp plan, but also we put in a lot of, we provided resources through consultant services and a lot of staff time and a lot of time to create a visioning document for the comp plan. And that's been sitting on the shelf, I think, for a couple of years now. And I would like to see some of those comments and ideas that were collected from so many people. It was a very big involvement process and include hundreds of people and comments and ideas and all that. But anyway, my point is that we have the vision from our community. We have an outdated plan, but yet we're looking to make major amendments to the comprehensive plan in the zone. I guess I'll stop there.
So, yes, Mr. Appicello, could you provide us with some legal guidance here on, the applicant has obviously made application based on what's in place today.
Exactly. Again, we are not today talking about a proposal to revise the entire comprehensive plan. Yes, we know it is out of date and there is a need to address that, but that's not what's before us today. We have an application, a privately initiated application, which we're obligated to go through this process with. And so we're comparing this application to the existing comprehensive plan as it currently exists, as it's currently in full force and effect. So that is what our task is. Yes, we do have to perform an update of our comprehensive plan, but that's not the issue for this evening.
Thank you. Any other questions that council have of staff? Anne Marie, I may have missed it. Did I see a recommendation from staff? I saw the Planning Commission's decision and discussion.
Staff doesn't give a recommendation.
Okay, thank you. All right, no other questions, then
I do. Is this not, why don't we have a recommendation from staff?
The direction that I've received from Planning Commission is that they don't want a staff recommendation. So I have not been making a staff recommendation.
On all previous, it seems to me that all previous land things, we do get recommendations from staff. So this seems to be a different direction than previously.
If you would like a recommendation, staff's recommendation is denial based upon the fact that it's 8 tax lots. It's akin to spot zoning, even though spot zoning is not technically a term. For all the same reasons that the surf tides rezone was denied, those are the reasons that staff recommends denial of this.
Thank you.
all right, Mr. Chandler.
Yeah, it's just a point of clarification on the procedures from that. The Planning Commission is the appointed body to give land use recommendations to the City Council. So when we say we don't, the staff does not give a recommendation, that's not completely accurate. The recommendation the staff gives is to the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission then weighs that decision and then they make their recommendation based upon all the information. We have in the past had the staff give recommendations. Sometimes those have been different from the Planning Commission, but ultimately the appointed body that is to make a recommendation to the City Council is the Planning Commission, and it's the staff that gives the recommendation to them, and then they take it from there.
I suppose a better question was, what was staff's recommendation to Planning Commission? So
I think Anne Marie just gave that, correct, Anne Marie?
right, but I mean, that's the question I could have asked.
Right, exactly.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for the clarification, Ron. All right, how about the applicant's presentation? Must be Mr. Townsend, I'll bet.
Thank you, Mayor, council members. I would just ask that if you have any questions or concerns that you address them to me in the course of this so that I have a chance to respond rather than waiting until you have deliberations when there is no chance to respond. I guess one of the first things I want to do is make some differentiation between this application and the 2 other proposed rezonings that the City Council recently denied, the single lot Sutton rezoning by the community center and the single lot Cho rezoning by the surf tides. Both of those involved single lots that directly abutted other residentially zoned lots. There was no separation of any kind between them and the other residentially zoned properties that they abutted or even actually wedged into. And here there's 2 factors that are pretty different. First, there's a street, the public right-of-way 40 feet wide that separates the area to be rezoned from the main residential area. That's 5th Street at the south end of this. Then, perhaps more important, there's a topographic change that creates a geographic differentiation between the rezoned area and the rest of the area. At Southwest Ebb and 5th Street, the elevation is 68 feet. By the time you get up to 7th, the elevation is 120 feet, so the elevation difference is 50 feet. And then by the time you get up to 8th, the elevation is 142 feet. So that's almost 80 feet, which is the equivalent of an 8-story building if you want to try to picture how much difference that is. So there's a geographic differentiation between the remaining residentially zoned area and the area we're talking about rezoning. Also, what would be left here actually is just about 130 feet of interface between this area, if it was owned RC zone, and the residential area to the south. There's two lots there. One, at this time, one is owned by someone in Hillsborough and the other someone in Arizona. Also, I want to mention that while, technically it's a little over 2 acres, over an acre that is down on the beach, so it's really not part of the area that could be developed or anything. I guess one thing I need to turn to is really the suitability of the site for multifamily housing. Assuming that the land was totally available and could be assembled, just the land value itself is, according to the county assessor's office, is $2.8 million. You compare that to the three most recent apartment projects in Lincoln City, the land values there was about $400,000 per acre. So this land is 7 times more expensive. And actually, part of it's already developed, or most of it's developed, with another $1.2 million worth of improvements. So thinking that there might be apartments going in there when just to get the land is going to cost over $4 million, just does not make sense. It would never pencil out. But also the land itself being long and narrow, you've got under the RM zoning, you've got a 20-foot setback from the street, from ebb. Again, there's only an acre up there on top of the bluff. So you got a 20-foot setback, a 450-foot length of the whole project there. That's 9,000 square feet taken out. Probably roughly 9,000 square feet also would come out for the erosion zone, bluff erosion setback. So then you're down to a little over 25,000 square feet. Then you've got to get into that, all the required parking, the required landscaping, the required recreation area. So that reduces the possible number of apartments that could go in. So it's really, from a financial and engineering standpoint, it's really totally impractical, I think, for this to be apartments. And so with respect to the staff report itself, they give a number of different reasons why they think that some of the goals are not met. The main thing one of the main things I want to say is that with respect to land use planning, the city's goal 1, what that is about is compliance with procedure. And that's what you're doing tonight, is actually complying with the procedure. So in a nutshell, just say the goal 1 is met because you're going through the proper procedure. And in fact, the comprehensive plan actually sets out this whole major revision process. And I'm not absolutely convinced it's a major revision. We're talking about either 1 or 2 acres, depending on how you want to look at it. If it's a major revision, I don't see how it could be spot zoning. And if it's spot zoning, I don't see how it could be a major revision. But the comprehensive plan sets out a procedure for making exactly this kind of change. That's why there is something called a major revision or a minor revision, depending on how you want to look at it. Assuming it's a major revision, that's what the comprehensive plan contemplates will happen. It says it's important to recognize and effectively deal with major changes in the community. The comp plan reflects the desires of the community at the time it is adopted and must be continually reviewed and revised to keep pace with changing circumstances and community desires and standards. That's right out of the part of the comp plan where it talks about plan review and amendment. On goals 2, 3, and 4, we agree that it's consistent with those goals. Goal 5, the natural hazard goal. The staff report just says the city's maps show the site as being in the bluff erosion and tsunami evacuation zones, and It says the proposal is not consistent with Goal 5, but it really doesn't say why. And in fact, the ordinances provide for development in hazard zones, so that's why we have the coastal erosion setback and so on. So I don't see any inconsistency with the natural hazard goal. I'm not sure even that the tsunami hazard maps have been adopted as part of the comp plan or as part of the zoning ordinance, so that may not be relevant. But in any event, right in the middle of the street at the south end of this property, there's the blue line on the street that says you're leaving the tsunami zone, and the Beat the Wave study showed that from this entire property, you have about 20 minutes to leave after the shaking stops. You have 20 minutes to get out of the tsunami zone, and here you could do it at a slow walk. So after the shaking stops, you amble up and you're out of the tsunami zone. So it is not a particularly dangerous area. With respect to Goal 6, the housing goal, the rezoning would have little or no effect on the availability of housing. Certainly the land cost would prevent anything being built there that would qualify as workforce housing, with $2.8 million per acre. But even if it's in the RC zone, it'll still be available for residential development if that's what people want. Certainly the inventory of available RM land will not be reduced significantly by a rezone here, because there is 83.5 acres, according to the housing study, of available RM zone land, of which there's only a quarter acre here, the 2 undeveloped lots, only a quarter acres would be part of that available RM zone. And again, apartments are available. Apartments could be developed if that's what somebody wanted to do in this zone. In the RC zone, they're a conditional use, so they actually would give the city more control over what gets built and how it looks and so on. Goal 8, the aesthetic goal is to develop a livable and pleasing area. The only aesthetic resource in the area actually is 3rd Street. And there's a picture in my application materials of 3rd Street. There is a whole hearing process actually that has to go before the Planning Commission for development that would occur within 100 feet of a significant aesthetic resource, and that's what the right-of-way of 3rd Street is there. So the Planning Commission actually has to approve, and there's a detailed report that has to happen. So any effect on the aesthetic resource there would actually be able to be easily mitigated by the Planning Commission imposing conditions on that. And certainly if development is proposed for this area, none is proposed now, certainly there could be a development agreement that also would relate to the aesthetic goal. Transportation, I'll say at the outset, neither the Public Works Department nor ODOT have said anything about any problems about transportation. There's according to the transportation system plan, the city is responsible for sidewalk infill along Southwest Ebb between 101 and Southwest 9th, and also for sidewalks. And in both cases, these things are bicycles paths and sidewalks, which the staff report mentions. Both of them are considered in the TSP as being fairly low priority, but any development that happens along there will be required at least to put in sidewalk, curb gutter sidewalk, that does anywhere else in the city. So regardless of how it's developed, whether it's more housing units or VRDs or a motel or apartments, there would have to be sidewalks put in. Let's see. I'm just sort of trying to blow through these things because there's so many. The statewide planning goals remake the same arguments for that I did for the city's comp plan goals, and I just want to make clear that the rezoning is consistent with the comp plan and the statewide planning goals. There is really no evidence in the staff report or nor was there any testimony about anything beyond a conclusion that some goals weren't met, but it's never explained why goals weren't met. No opposition from the community or any public agencies, and the only comments you've gotten have been supportive. This is a small area proposed for rezoning, but it's tucked in on two of the three sides where there's land use. The north and the east are zoned commercial, so we're perfectly consistent with those. Now, the Planning Commission recognized that the neighborhood is distinctly commercial, the majority on the Planning Commission. The only connection to the residential area, remaining residential area, again, is that across the street to the south. The majority of the Planning Commission also concluded that the circumstances of the site preclude any RM development of there. No one could economically develop apartments at this location. The minority on the Planning Commission, the ones that recommended against approval, and the majority did recommend approval, I should say. The minority said that they didn't think that rezoning should be done on a piecemeal basis, but should be done citywide and comprehensively. That may be the case that a hard look at zoning citywide is appropriate, but there is a process that is allowed for this, and both the comprehensive plan, the statewide planning goals, and our zoning ordinance contemplate this kind of thing happening. Shouldn't be able to say, well, we're going to do the whole city, so come back, we'll talk about this in a couple of years. That's really inappropriate. The minority also said the application is an attempt to circumvent, that's their word, circumvent BRD rules rather than an imminent desire to develop the property. There is no requirement that any imminent development be planned when rezoning is proposed. The reason why people are asking for the property owners are asking for this to be rezoned is made clear. With regard to the word circumvent, I just want to say nobody's trying to pull any kind of fast trick or anything here. This is happening out in the open through the process that the ordinance, the comp plan, and statewide planning goals require. Public hearings. What we're trying to really do is take something that is non-conforming and make it conforming, and through a thoroughly open and public process. There also a concern was that the minority who recommended denial seemed to be saying that they had recommended denial on other properties in the past, and I believe that's referring to the Cho and the Sutton properties, and they needed to be consistent with those. And if they weren't, the Planning Commission would be inundated with rezoning applications. Obviously, that's not an approval criterion. You can't say we're not going to allow it here because we don't want any over there. Actually, it's probably directly contrary to law. And certainly, you on the City Council have shown you can say no when it's warranted. So I don't think that's a significant issue at all. There was no evidence at the Planning Commission about what inconsistencies there were with the comp plan or the statewide planning goals, and neither the Planning Commission never said what any of those inconsistencies might be. All the evidence in the record showed that the proposed rezoning is consistent with the comp plan and the statewide goals. Again, no one has opposed this. None of the neighbors have come out against it. The only comments you've gotten have been positive. That's all I want to say. If you have questions, let me know. I believe also, well, you got a written comment from Karen Scrutton, one of the property owners, and I believe there's also, well, there may be more.
So thank you, Mr. Townsend. Any questions from council of Mr. Townsend for the applicants? I don't. And Ron, did any of your screening of those statements that came in apply to this public hearing?
We do. I have 3, but I do need to ask the question. There's somebody's name I don't recognize. It's on the screen with us. Is Karen Scrutton either in the building or connected remotely? Okay. I have 3 comments that have come in, Mayor.
Okay. So why don't we take the ones that are supporting the application?
Okay. The first came from Jean Cilia. Hello, Mr. Mayor and City Councilors. On behalf of myself, Jean Cilia, and my husband, Mike Test, I would like to voice our support of the rezoning requested in CPA and ZC Scrutton et al. Zone change. The properties identified are comprised of approximately 1 acre of usable land located in the midst of restaurants, shops, offices, the cultural center, outlet mall, parks, the ocean, and other amenities. This makes the area ideal for commercial use for residents and visitors alike. Thank you for considering this change, Jean Cilia. The next one came from Robert Glanville. This note is to let you know that I am in support of the proposed zoning change to commercial zoning, Robert Glanville. And then the third one is from Karen Scrutton, and she writes, hello, Mayor and City Council. Karen Scrutton here. My husband, Gene, and I own 405 Southwest Ave. We bought and renovated our house 20 years ago and made it a vacation rental. Never a complaint, and approximately $100,000 in transient room tax to the city. Our quotation, open quote, across the street, close quote, neighbors are the Pier Restaurant Dumpster and their delivery trucks. Also across the street is the dilapidated Daft Fire Station. Kitty Corner is the closed Sip and Sand restaurant parking lot. To the south kitty corner is the back of the U.S. Bank and their parking. Further down the block to the north is the back of the subway and their parking lot. The Highway 101 is in plain view and very loud. The block is an odd pie shape that has some very skinny lots. Not a good option for apartments or condos. It is a good option for vacation rentals or small businesses like a bike shop. I'm hoping creative ideas will come from this zone change. Everyone on our block is in support. I hope you consider this zone change. Sincerely, Karen Scrutton. That's all the public comments I have, Mayor.
Oh, great. Okay. So then I will assume there are no opposition statements or questions. All right. Mr. Mark, do you have a question?
Yeah, I've been reviewing the documents. I guess I'd feel a little more comfortable if I had some idea of what the property owners have in mind. I'm not really seeing that. And it sounds like either they want to develop or they have the idea that they could develop some small business, or as the Planning Commission opponent suggested, that if there are vacation rentals here that are in danger of losing the license when the property is transferred, that they would, under the new zone, retain the ability to continue as vacation rentals. Is that the whole point of this?
Well, it doesn't matter on that. I would say what you've got to look at is it's a request for a zone change, and you've got to look at the list that was provided to you of the kind of businesses and properties that can, or structures that can go on this zone. So, because as we've learned before, clearly, you know, what it is today may not be what it is tomorrow. And I mean, Mr. Townsend even stated that. So I think it shouldn't go into your decision-making process would be my guess of what they intend, because they may not have an in full penciled out intention yet. So I think you've got to be prepared to look at, as a zone change, what could possibly go in there. And if you want to pick the worst in your mind and focus on that, I know that doesn't answer your question.
No, thank you. I'm trying to
Yeah.
understand how, as they say, how I should think about this.
Okay. Anne Marie, you had a question?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to confirm that you are correct. That's not one of the proposed use or future use or prospective use is not one of the criteria for approval. So you simply need to look at all the permitted uses, and any of those could be employed if it's approved.
Okay. And Mr. Appicello, do you want to echo those same sentiments?
Yeah, you said what I was going to say. There is no development agreement specifying a use, so it's every use that's listed in the zone.
Okay. Any other, let's see, we're down to,
Can Mr. Appicello repeat what he just said? I'm sorry, it broke out.
oh, he's just confirming what we've said.
Yeah. There is no development agreement that would tie it to any particular use. So it's look at the zoning district and it's all the uses listed. There is no commitment to any one. You have to look at them all.
All right, thank you. Mr. Chandler, your hand is up, but I'm assuming that's from, okay. All right, then let me go, is there any testimony from representatives of the, any public agencies? And hearing none, seeing none. Mr. Townsend, I didn't hear you reserve, and you certainly didn't save any time on that long spiel for rebuttal. I don't know what you'd rebut anyway.
Right, nothing to rebut.
Thank you. All right, so let's go down then to, so ORS section 197.763 paragraph 6A states that upon request, the council must either grant a continuance for no less than 7 days or hold the record open for no less than 7 days to permit any participant an opportunity to provide additional testimony, argument, or evidence. Does any person who participated desire to request a continuance to provide additional testimony, argument, or evidence, or request that the record be left open to submit additional written testimony, argument, or evidence?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I don't want to, but I thought I heard at the beginning of this that there was someone in the audience there who wanted to testify.
Not for this public hearing.
Okay, I thought I heard that Mr. Test was there.
Oh, in the chamber office, in
Right.
chamber? Pat Dunn is there, but
Okay.
is there anyone other than Pat Dunn? Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, David. Sorry, Mr. Townsend. Okay. With that, then, does the applicant waive the opportunity to submit final written argument after the close of the record, or provide as provided in ORS section 197.763 paragraph 6E?
Yes.
Yes. All right. Does the city attorney or staff have any comments, concerns, legal issues raised during these proceedings, instructions on the applicable law, or legal advice concerning the application of the law to the evidence in the record?
I don't have anything specific, but I can answer any questions you may have.
Okay. Any questions, legal questions? All right. Okay, then, this matter is returned to the table for deliberations and recommendations, but what we do is make a motion to close the hearing and the record.
Yeah, you did miss that, so you need to do that.
Yep. So is there a motion to close the record? Yes, Judy.
I make a motion to close the record and the hearing.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
And Diane made the second. Thank you. Any questions, deliberation on that? All those in favor of closing and the hearing and the record, say aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay. Hearing none. All right. So deliberation, you want to sit for next meeting now that you've heard testimony and deliberate first thing at the start of next meeting? Is there any reason that wouldn't be okay, Mr. Appicello, time-wise, or Anne Marie, are we under a time?
I believe that would give you the opportunity to review anything that was submitted in writing. I realize there weren't that many letters submitted, but they were submitted at the last minute.
Okay, and we're not under any kind of time frame?
I believe the 120-day rule does not apply when, well, actually, this is just a rezoning.
Yeah.
Marie, did we get an extension on that?
We did receive an extension. We have a 60-day extension. So provided we have, if we make the decision at the next hearing, we'll be fine.
Okay.
So if it's okay, we'll then put this on the agenda for deliberation of June 22nd meeting, 6 o'clock.
Is that unanimous consent?
Is that okay with that? Anybody have a disagreement with that?
I do. I don't know why we want to do that. We've just been through both the staff report and the submitters report. I'm just wondering why. Didn't we all get those same email messages that Ron read? Because I remember reading them before the meeting.
Well, I've always found it's worthwhile to, after you hear public hearing, to then go back and reread your packet, that was submitted by staff, since there isn't any rush time frame, and
I just see this as prolonging it just for, I don't know. I read the packet. I've been reading it while I'm sitting here again. I've been listening. I just don't like pulling these things out for long lengths of time, but.
So, since it's not unanimous, do I need a motion then to move it forward, Mr. Appicello, to the 22nd?
Yes, you would need a motion if you're not going to deliberate now.
So, I'd entertain a motion to move this deliberation to the 22nd meeting of June.
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
And who was that?
Rick?
Oh, Rick. So Riley moved and Mr. Mark seconded. You've heard the discussion. All those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed with a nay?
Nay.
Ms. Hinton is the nay. All right, it passes. We'll talk about deliberate on the 22nd. All right. Then let's move on to the next public hearing. This is the, I'll read away. It is now 7:10 p.m. The public hearing for file annex 2020-01 and CPA and ZC 2020-02 is now open. The public hearing concerns a request to annex approximately 11.15 acres and to amend the comprehensive plan and zoning map for a site on the east side of Northwest Logan Road, approximately 370 feet south of the east-west stretch of Northeast Port Lane. The requested amendment is to apply the comprehensive plan designation of single-family residential district, R5, and change from the existing Lincoln County residential R1A zone to Lincoln City's single-family residential zone R15. The applicants and property owners are Woods One LLC, file ANNEX 2020-01, and CPA and ZC 2020-02. The Planning Commission held a public hearing on this matter on February 18th, 2020. Planning Commission's recommendation is included in the council communication in the meeting packet. The council must take a few minutes to cover some preliminary matters and required statements. Does any members of the council wish to declare an ex parte conflict of interest or bias in this matter? I don't see anybody indicating. Ms. Hinton.
I don't have a conflict or bias. I just wanted to disclose that I did in 2014 testify on this very piece of property. It was owned by someone else. It was a whole different everything, but and it was a neutral testimony, but I just wanted to say that out loud.
That's probably a good reminder. I'm not sure, but I'm sure I served on council when this property, different owners also made applications for the city for annexation.
Can both of you make an affirmative statement of impartiality? That is, you'll make the decision based upon this application and you're not biased or prejudiced by your prior involvement?
Sure.
I can and do, yes.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Does any member of the audience wish to challenge the qualifications of a counselor to participate in this matter?
No challenge from Pat Dunn.
What was that, Mr. Dunn?
I say I have no challenge.
Okay.
Can you hear me okay with the mask and all?
Yeah.
Very good.
Is there anything, Mr. Chandler, that has come in as far as any challenges that we're aware of? Again, Mr. Appicello would tell us that it would be in advance anyway, right?
Yeah, not as far as challenges, no.
Okay. All right. Does any member of the audience wish to challenge the jurisdiction of the council to consider this matter? Hearing none. The following statements are required to be made at the commencement of the hearing pursuant to City Code in ORS 1977635. Staff shall now read a list of the applicable substantive criteria for this decision. Anne Marie, you have one. This is you, Anne Marie.
I always have to screens worked around. The applicable substantive criteria are the Oregon revised statutes, the Oregon statewide planning goals, the Lincoln City comprehensive plan, and the applicable provisions of Lincoln City Municipal Code Title 17.
Great, thank you. All testimony, arguments, and evidence must be directed toward the applicable substantive criteria previously listed, or such other criteria in the plan or land use regulations which the person believes applies to the decision. Failure to raise an issue accompanied by statements or evidence sufficient to afford the decision maker and the parties an opportunity to respond to the issue precludes appeal to Luba, the Land Use Board of Appeals, on that issue. Failure of the applicant to raise constitutional or other issues related to proposed conditions of approval with sufficient specificity to allow the decision maker to respond to issue precludes any action for damages in circuit court. Prior to the end of this hearing, any person who participated may request a continuance to provide additional testimony, argument, or evidence, or request that the record be left open to submit additional written testimony, argument, or evidence. Before the staff presents a report, I would like to summarize the public hearing procedures which have been adopted by City Council. Generally, the order of the proceedings will be as follows: preliminary matters and required statements, staff report, questions of staff, applicant's presentation, those in favor of the application, those opposed, rebuttal by applicant, requests of continuance or to leave the record open, close of the hearing, close of the record, request to submit written argument, deliberations, and decision. City has established some time limits. The applicant will have 15 minutes and may reserve up to 5 minutes of that time for rebuttal. After the appellant testifies, any person may speak for up to 3 minutes. If the Planning Commission has questions, your time responding to any questions will not be counted in your time limit. If you wish to speak, please write your name and mailing address clearly on the sign-up sheet at the entrance. Please speak directly into the microphone and begin by stating your name. If you also have written testimony to submit into the record, please provide a copy to the recorder. Anne Marie, go ahead and present your staff report.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor. As has been stated by Mayor Anderson, this is an annexation and a zone change request, both running concurrently. Oh, something just happened on the screen. Okay. The property is currently outside of city limits, but it is in the urban growth boundary. It has a Lincoln County residential comprehensive plan designation and a Lincoln County residential zoning designation of R1A. It is approximately 11.15 acres, consisting of 2 tax lots. The property owners are requesting to annex both tax lots, so that would be the entire 11.15 acres, into the city with a request to change the comprehensive plan designation from the county's residential designation to the city's single family district designation, and a subsequent request to change the zone from the county zone of R1A to the city's zone of R15, which is single family residential. The surrounding land uses and zones are as follows. To the northwest of the site are single family dwellings. Directly northeast of the site is the city water tower. And all of those properties are zoned R1RE, which is the single family residential roads end zone. Southwest of the site is a hotel, and southeast of the site is undeveloped tribal land. Those areas have a zoning designation of recreation commercial. East of the site, both east and west of the site contain single family dwellings. The zoning to the east of the site is R1 7.5, and the zoning to the west of the site is R1RE. Again, that's the Roads End zoning district. The required public notices were given for annexation. That includes posting at the site. And in this case, there was an error in the first mailing notice. So there was a second mailing notice that took place. The public hearing notice was also published in the News Guard as required by city code. The staff report mentions the previous efforts of annexing this property. I'm not going to go into any detail of that. It's not particularly relevant because this is a brand new case, but it's always good to have a brief history, which is why it was included in the staff report. The applicant states the nature of the request, as I've already stated, is the annexation of the 11.15 acres to the city's R15 zone. Planning Commission did recommend approval of this annexation, and they recommended denial of the comprehensive plan map amendment and zone change. The written staff report goes on to give an analysis of the Lincoln City comprehensive plan goals and the statewide planning goals for both the annexation and zone change. Staff has recommended approval of both the annexation and the zone change and the comprehensive plan map change. And I am ready for any questions.
Anybody have questions of staff? Mr. Mark.
Yeah, thank you. Anne Marie, I'm reviewing the Planning Commission's recommendations, and it looks like they recommended 4-3 to approve the annexation, but voted against the rezoning. Is that
correct?
So if they don't, so without rezoning, so that means that the land would become part of the city, but what would the zone then be?
In that case, the land would become part of the city, as you stated, and the zone would be the county's zone and the county's comprehensive plan designation, which would mean that the city would be administering the county's zone for this particular piece of property if the annexation was approved.
So without asking, Mr. Mark, go ahead, and what's the rationale behind that?
Well, and what is that? I mean,
yeah.
So we administer a county zone? I mean, I don't get it, I guess.
Planning Commission felt that the R15 zone was not appropriate, and that the zone request should have been either R175 or R1RE.
So what could, so it would still be residential, yeah, under the county zone?
It would still be residential.
So what's the, I guess, what's the difference between what the county zone would allow, or what you can do under the county zone versus what the developer might do under the city zone?
The uses are the same. The requested city zone has lot size of 5,000, minimum of 5,000 square feet. The county zone R1A has a minimum lot size of 6,000 square feet. The front setback is 20 feet versus the city's front setback is either 5 or 7.5, depending upon if the house is single story or 2-story or more.
So more houses under the city, so they can still put houses under the county rules, but the lots would be bigger and you would have fewer houses.
Correct.
I mean, theoretically, or potentially.
Yes. The county zone also has a building height maximum of 30 feet, whereas the R15 zone maximum is 35. And the county zone has a maximum lot coverage of 30% of the total lot area, whereas the R15 has a maximum lot coverage of 35%.
Okay, I guess I got the idea. Thank you.
Jen Hinton.
I have a question. Just for history's sake, there was a time when Rhodes End was R1A under the county for quite a while before it was rezoned. So there's history of that. And also under the R1A, can they also bring to you a PUD, which is what I think they were saying in their application?
Councilor Hinton, that's a good question, and I don't have an answer for that off the top of my head. I would have to look at our code and look at the county's code and see how that would work.
They didn't submit any, I mean, they submitted some draft ideas that were well drawn, but I just don't know exactly what they intend to use it as or for, and because we have an indication, but that's all. Is that correct?
You are correct, Councilor Hinton. All we have is an indication. Those draft plans that they submitted can change at any time without submittal of a PUD and a preliminary plat and or a development agreement. Those plans that they submitted don't mean much. I mean, there's no guarantee, I guess. There's no guarantee.
Okay, because in addition, I was just curious because on their drawings, they show an entrance and exit onto Logan Road, and I would question that. But because it's here nor there at this point, doesn't matter what it says on paper because it's just an idea.
Correct.
I shouldn't consider. Okay, thank you.
So, Anne Marie, could you help us? Was there any discussion in any of your pre-discussions with the applicant about a development agreement?
In the pre-application conference that I had with the developer when I was the senior planner, I recommended that they should come in with both a development agreement and a preliminary plat and PUD application, all as one whole complete package.
And they chose not to, obviously, huh? Okay. So, as you alluded to, or I guess you kicked right out, once in as an annex property, they just comply with the zone then criteria, correct? I mean, it doesn't matter.
Yes.
It doesn't matter what's been said previously or pictures made or anything else. It's again back to a zone and what a zone allows.
Yes.
I guess a technical question I would have, and Mr. Appicello, maybe you would want to weigh in. In lieu of a development agreement, and knowing that our housing analysis studies have indicated, we've got lots of land, but there are certain price ranges that we could use focus on, which we might, in essence, be more attracted to annexing something if it was meeting a real need for us. Is there a way, Mr. Appicello and Anne Marie, that we could, in essence, in lieu of development agreement, ask for some kind of remuneration to Affordable Housing Fund.
I'm sorry. I don't think we condition land use applications on such things. We have a process. We, consider it based on its comparison to the existing comprehensive plan and its compliance with the standards. Now, had they entered into a development agreement or proposed a development agreement, you could negotiate such things, but they have not submitted such an application.
Okay. So again, it's back to, you have to rely, and we should rely on the zone itself and what's allowed.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Mr. Mark, you have another question?
This might be a bit of a detail. I just see the discussion in the packet, and I think somebody commented in one of the public comments questioning that the developer had expressed willingness to grant an easement to the city for storm drainage, and the information we have here notes that that's great that they're willing to do that, but it's not binding. But I'm wondering, that may be true, but if they go ahead with a development proposal, such a requirement, the city could eventually require that storm drainage easement in order to get the development approved. Does that question make sense?
Your Honor, I have a note from Richard Townsend saying he was kicked off of this meeting.
Oh. Yeah, I don't see him here.
So I also have a note that says he's requested a continuance, and I don't see him here. I see one gentleman in the council chambers, but I don't see the applicant.
Okay.
Okay, well, I'm getting statements that, violation of due process. I've been kicked out of the meeting. Do we have a request for a continuance, Anne Marie, to August 10th?
You're unmute yourself, Anne Marie. There.
Yes, I'm looking at my email. It looks like at 7:18 p.m. I received an email that states, I request a continuance to August 10th and agree to extend the 120 days until then.
Okay, well, I think we should probably, I'm a little concerned that counselors are starting to talk in a deliberative fashion here about this application, and we haven't finished the staff report and haven't heard from the applicant, and the applicant apparently somehow was told he couldn't participate on Zoom, which I don't understand because he did participate on the previous hearing.
No, that's incorrect.
Well,
it was the Woods. I was told that the Woods needed to exit.
Oh,
they.
This is Steve Woods. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Not Richard.
No, this is Steve Woods.
Steve Woods.
Yes, I'm the applicant.
Yeah, Richard should still be here. There was no problem with him attending.
Okay, well, there's a problem, obviously, with the way this is. It had to happen some point, right? This is Zoom. It's not perfect. I would suggest that we suspend any further staff report and continue the hearing until August 10th. That's what the applicant's representative has requested.
Could I make a comment?
I'm not your attorney. I can't give you advice. So
go ahead, Mr. Wood.
Okay, so a couple of things. I was under the impression from our meetings that the question from the planning department was whether it would be a 5,000 square foot per lot or 6,000 square foot per lot zoning. So that was one of the things that I'm not sure how that.
Yeah, Mr. Wood, I hate to cut you off, but if we're going to continue this, and evidently your representative has made a request to continue this so we can get it all in order and work that kind of stuff out. So,
And we had agreed to try and put together and ask for an extension so that we could put together a full agreement outlining just what we're planning on doing. And so we needed a continuation for that.
okay. All right. Well, then I would, so Mr. Appicello, a simple motion to continue this public hearing to August 10th?
Yeah, you have a request from the applicant to continue to August 10th. I would, that's what Richard's email says. I would consider that motion.
Can I, do I hear that motion? Somebody unclick their mute button. So Diane made that motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Judy seconded. All right. Any discussion regarding that motion?
Can we explain exactly what's happening and why we're not going forward right now?
Please.
Mr. Appicello?
The applicant requested a continuance.
Yeah, the applicant's representative has requested a continuance. The email I have indicates, let me find it.
As of what time?
I have requested a continuance to August 10th to negotiate a development agreement and prepare written materials. So I believe that part of your discussion may have triggered that as well, although that was certainly the direction from the Planning Commission as well.
Since when in mid-meeting do we take in outside of our discussion, outside input to then change the process?
Well, this is an applicant-initiated process, and the applicant somehow got under the impression he was excluded from the meeting, which obviously is a due process issue we're going to want to correct. By, the continued hearing is handled in the same fashion as the original hearing, so the applicant's representative will have an opportunity to start over. Didn't even get his chance to talk at this point. So
I have a different question too, because this is going to be totally different. I mean, the packet's going to have a whole different, information from the applicant. Does this have to go back to the Planning Commission? Because it won't be the same.
if there is a substantial change, you have the option under your procedures to send it to the Planning Commission for a recommendation. So if they come to you and present something different, you can say, wait a minute, we want to hear from the Planning Commission. So that may happen. But
in August?
Understands the procedures, so.
So in August, they're going to come back on a continuance from what could possibly be different. And then at that time, we will say to them, please stop, and we're going to redirect you to Planning Commission?
Well, I think you would conduct your hearing, and you may, at the conclusion of that hearing, when after deliberations, you may say, we want this to go to the Planning Commission.
I just don't understand how, like, mid thing, we can change. It can change.
Well, simply because it is an applicant's made the application. So if they don't want to go further, you know, and again, quite the legal aspect of it is their representative got bounced off. So hasn't been privy to this information.
No, but that doesn't, but being bounced off doesn't mean they can't bounce in. I mean, I don't understand also. I think it's going to be a completely different application in 2 months, and then without going through Planning Commission and then back to here.
So what is it that you're most concerned about regarding that?
Taking more time.
Well, but time, you know, that's what you're here for. They have a change of application. Supposedly, we'll decide whether it's substantive or not.
It's just changing it now that they hear, oh, whoops, whoa, the council's not really going, it doesn't sound like they're going for it. So we're just going to change it and then bypass planning.
Yeah, that could be. Mr. Mayor, David Twig has his hand up.
Oh, all right, Mr. Twig. Well, my concern, and I think Mr. Appicello would be, is that he's not been included in the staff report. I don't know when he got bounced off. And, you know, so that's probably, you know, part of it. The other is, it sounds to me like, you know, they want to change their approach. I don't see the, you know, Mr. Chandler?
He was bounced off the email that came through was at 7:12. So he's been out of this conversation for a half an hour.
What of this says he going to be a part of anyway?
He's the applicant.
Yeah.
And he has, as Mr. Appicello said, he has specifically requested a continuance of this hearing until August 10th. So he hasn't asked to get put back on. He hasn't asked to be connected by phone. He's asked for a continuance until August because he got bounced off somehow. And I don't know how that happened.
In this meeting, then the motion on the floor is to allow that to happen. But if you don't agree with that and feel like they should reapply the entire process through Planning Commission, isn't that a different motion?
I'm going to leave that up to your attorney to answer that question.
Yeah, I just want to read to you what the code says. If the council proposes to adopt an amendment that substantially altered from the recommendation of the commission, the council may refer the proposed amendment back to the commission for report and recommendation, which may include the holding of a joint meeting before adoption. So there's a word may in there. And if the council, it seems to be, even though this is very preliminary, and by its questions indicating that, wait, there's no development agreement, there's no commitment here, couldn't we ask for something like that? If the council's kind of leaning that way or pointing that way, I think the council has the ability to send it to the Planning Commission. The council has the ability to invite the Planning Commission in and have a joint meeting. This is, again, an annexation, a comp plan amendment, and a zone change. If they are going to add a development agreement, I'd say that's a substantial change. I'd want to involve the Planning Commission. I'd probably, if the applicant's willing, I'd probably want to have a joint meeting and have the Planning Commission show up.
For me, this is like if we're in council and we're sitting at the dais and there's somebody in the audience trying to speak when it's not their turn, and we say, "Sorry, your turn." It's no longer an option. Somehow now, through Zoom and because it's Mr. Townsend, we're saying, "Oh, hold on, let's hold everything off and then redo it." Whereas if this was in person, we'd say, "Sorry, this isn't the time." So that's what I'm having a trouble understanding.
Well, we don't have any preconceived ideas or decision here. We just need to hear what the applicant is proposing and make a decision. So if they wish to withdraw their application or revise their application, they have the right to do that. They've paid to go through the process. I wouldn't take offense at it. I would just say we want to provide due process. That means we want the applicant to have the opportunity to present his best case. The applicant's representative isn't even here right now, and he's requested time to regroup, submit additional information, and to address probably what was kind of being led to as the council's ideas.
But it feels like they're going to change the substance of their application after going through planning.
I think what they're doing is probably, and correct me if I'm wrong, Anne-Marie. Anne-Marie had suggested a development agreement. I believe the former planning director had suggested, no, don't do a development agreement. And I think that they're finally listening to Anne-Marie. So,
yeah, but at 7:18 while it's going on is different than, before that.
But that's their right, though. They've paid for the process.
They are giving extensions, and again, it's time, but I'd rather do this right than just do it to get it done. So if the applicant wants more time to do it right, do what Anne Marie had suggested, I think that council ought to consider giving them that time.
All right, we have a motion on the table to grant the continue to August 10th. This place, 6 p.m. And it was a motion and a second. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed with a nay? It passed. So we'll see them on August 10th.
Mr. Anderson,
Yes.
can you hear me?
Yep.
This is Steve Woods. And Mr. Hoagland, I understand what you're saying. However, my wife was on this broadcast as well, and she was kicked off also. Her name is Karen Woods. I think if you look, there's some system in here in Zoom where you can see where she was listening in, and she was kicked off at about that same time, actually a little before Richard was kicked off. So there may be something wrong in the system. I'm not sure why it's kicking those people off.
Okay.
And also secondarily, Mr. Reposello is correct. We were instructed early on to just ask for the annexation and not to do the full-blown proposal of here's what we're going to do. We were told just file for the annexation first and then come in with your final proposal. So thank you for hearing me out.
Thank you, sir. All right, we'll see you in August.
Yes.
All right. Okay. We have another public hearing. So, Mr. Dunn, I guess that would relieve you of any kind of testimony that you wanted to give. See you back in August.
Yeah, that would be correct. I just wanted to ask Anne Marie while she's there. I have 2 original signature documents that she only had email copy, but I can leave them here, and she could pick those up. Better preference if she needs the original signature documents.
No, she
No.
said
I
no.
don't.
You're good with what I've sent in, and you did get the third one, the addendum.
Yes, I have it.
Good. Yeah, so everything's good there.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Dunn.
Thank you.
All right. Let's move ahead then, and we have a public hearing, and let me open the public hearing for Resolution 2020-12. This is state revenue sharing. And I think Debbie, you have a kind of a staff report?
Yes, in our proposed budget, we have about $168,800 of state revenue sharing in the general fund. In order for the city to receive those monies, we are required to hold a public hearing so that the public can comment on whether we should receive those monies and what we should do with them.
Yes.
All right. So, Mr. Chandler, let me check with you. Has any comments come in on the public comment email?
I have one.
Okay, would you mind reading the comment?
Yes, this is from G. Ralston. Hello, I feel a need to make a comment regarding this issue. If there was ever a time for all of us to hunker down and conserve our funds, it is now. Our futures individually and for our community is uncertain. When will we be able to return to normalcy is entirely out of our control. The second and third waves of the COVID-19 across our nation is entirely possible. Oregon has taken good steps to limit our exposure to date, but we cannot prevent a wave at our borders, and we will suffer when or if these waves come. Funds coming to the city should reflect this uncertainty. We need to fund the rainy day fund now more than ever. Room tax incomes are way down, so we must protect the city until we are certain this depression is behind us. This may not be the last time we are forced to close the hotels in the next 12 months. We must maintain a suitable reserve to fund essential services. Please do not expend rainy day funds on projects at this time. G. Ralston.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the chambers or have comments either for or against? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to close the hearing and the record.
So moved.
And is there a second?
That's Mitch.
Okay, Mitch. Is there a second? Oh, Judy. All right, we have a second from Judy and the motion from Mitch to close the hearing and the record. Any discussion? All I could say is it's seldom that we do pass up money from the state, but I'm sure there'll be the opportunity sometime. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed with a nay? Hearing none, the motion passes. There you go, Debbie. Oh, you want this one. Let me open public hearing, resolution number 2020-15 to adopt the 2020-21 city budget.
And that would just be a public hearing if anyone had comments on the proposed budget.
And Mr. Chandler, do you?
No, sir, not on this one.
Okay. And anyone in the city council chambers? Seeing and hearing none, I'd entertain a motion to close the hearing and the record on public hearing on the city budget.
So moved.
We have from Mr. Mark and a second.
Second.
From Mitch. Great. Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed with a nay? All right. Thank you. That passed. One more public hearing. Oh, this is a public comment. Public comment regarding resolution 2020-13, setting water and sewer rates. And this is the third year, correct, Mr. Chandler, of our increase in water and sewer that goes to capital improvements for the sewer.
Correct, third and looks like the last.
It looked like that. All
Hopefully.
right. Is that Debbie?
I was just saying hopefully.
No, okay. All right. Any comments on email or anything, Mr. Chandler?
Yes, I've received one. This is from Fran London. She writes, I would like to address the water and sewer rates in Lincoln City. This is on the agenda for the council meeting on June 8th, 2020. Our water and sewer rates in Lincoln City are the highest I have ever had to pay. I have lived in Washington State, Colorado, and Arizona. Even Arizona had lower water rates than Lincoln City, Oregon. Due to the COVID-19, many Lincoln residents have been out of work for almost 2 months, and these people don't have money to put food or on the table, let alone pay a higher water or sewer bill. To raise the water bill would tell the community that the city doesn't care about their finances. Instead of raising prices on utilities and other services, taxes in the community, you should be thinking of how to save money. How about not giving away money for special projects, transitional housing? How about selling some of the land the city is holding on to, the commons or transitional housing? How about looking at the staffing and other budgets? Will management for the city not get raises this year? This community has taken a huge loss of revenue to the citizens. To raise any rates on services for business and residential will be telling the community this council does not care about them. Sincerely, Fran London.
Thank you. All right. So, and nobody in the chamber, I'm assuming. All right. Yes, so the chamber went on, huh? So I would take a motion to close the public comment.
I move to close the public comment.
Thank you, Judy. Second?
Second.
From Councilor Mark. Thank you. We have a motion and a second to close the public comment on Resolution 2020-13, setting water and sewer rates. All those in favor of closing, say aye.
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 Opposed with a nay? Okay, thank you. All right, moving down then now to the actual resolutions themselves. We have Resolution 2020-12, a resolution declaring the city's election to receive state revenue. So we had the public hearing, now the actual resolution to accept the revenue. Entertain a motion to approve.
I move to approve Resolution 2020-12.
Second. Beat ya.
Judy with the motion and Deanna with the second. Any discussion? Hearing none. Does that need to be a roll call?
It does involve money, so.
Yeah, that's what it's. All right, Kathy, could you do a roll call, please?
Anderson,
Yes.
Casper,
Yes.
Hinton,
Yes.
Hoagland,
Yes.
Coos,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
and Parsons.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. We have resolution number 2020-13, a resolution setting forth water and sewer rates.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I move to approve Resolution 2020-13.
Second.
We have a motion from Casper and Coos does the second. Any discussion? Yes, Mr. Martin.
Hey, I appreciate the public comment we received, and of course, we have a very high unemployment rate in the county, and I'm sure the city, and businesses have taken a hit, and it's very difficult to increase these rates, but the reality is that the expense of running these systems is tremendous, and we have responsibility to environmental responsibility and clean water and clean sewer systems and all that, and I feel like it's justified. So it's just a harsh reality that we have to meet.
Thank you, Mr. Mark. I might also remind any listeners that the city council did impose, if an applicant citizen so desired, a 3-month deferral that they could make a request for to ease any of that cash flow requirements needs during this time. So we have a motion to approve with a second. A roll call, please.
Casper,
Yes.
Hinton,
Yes.
Hoagland. Hoagland,
Yep.
Coos,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
and Parsons,
Yes.
and Anderson.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. We have a resolution 2020-15 adopting the city budget for 2020/21.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Judy.
I move to approve Resolution 2020-15, adopting the budget for 2020-21.
I'll second.
Second.
We have a second from Mr. Mark. Thank you. Comments? I would point out to everyone, this budget went through the budget committee, which was 14 people, 7 city councilors, 7 citizens at large. And just because we approve this budget doesn't mean the money is spent. Council has the authority to approve actual expenditures, and depending on how this pandemic affects income, revenue, we've got a plan with the city manager as to how we will keep this a budget. It wouldn't be this one in balance. So as revenues don't come in, expenses won't be made. And I think that's important that citizens hear that just because it's in the budget doesn't mean it's getting spent. Any other comments? We've got a motion with a second. Okay. Kathy, could you do a roll call, please?
Hinton?
Yes.
Hoagland?
Yes.
Coos?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Parsons?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
And Casper?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Great, thank you. And then we have a resolution 2020-14, a resolution adopting the supplemental budget of the city of Lincoln City, Oregon for the fiscal year 2019/2020 as approved by the city council and making appropriations.
Mr. Mayor, I have floated, so as you're aware, the amount that we had allocated for our economic aid package to the lodging industry was $235,000. And then $400,000 we allocated to the non-lodging industry. The funds for the lodging industry were used up quite quickly. And so when we started the process of applying for to be reimbursed from federal funds, I floated the idea about using those monies that we were reimbursed to add to the lodging industry economic aid package. And it was well received. However, we don't know the date on which we'll receive those funds. Government tends to be a little bit slow, and so I'm not expecting we'll receive those quickly. So what this resolution proposes is to use $200,000 from our reserves to add to the amount that goes to the lodging industry, so that the two groups will be roughly equal in the amount that goes to them. As the money comes in for the reimbursement, then our idea was that it would replace these funds. We had already accounted for the loss of revenues that we were experiencing during this fourth quarter of the fiscal year. So, and that was without contemplating being reimbursed for anything. So those were funds that we were not expecting to come in. And as I said, as I've been floating that idea around, it's been well received. And the purpose of this is just to make the funds available now instead of waiting until a reimbursement comes in. And I believe the amount that we have applied for is about $150,000 to $160,000 right now. But there will be a second round of money that we'll apply for as well.
Debbie, do you want to say something?
No, I think that summarizes. I know the amount I applied for was $145,000. I think there might be some other applications though as well that add on to that.
Yeah, interestingly enough, what part of the application we will make for the next round will be the entire amount that we have of the economic aid package, because they are looking for things that are specifically going to help the deal with the problems of the virus.
Great. All right. to entertain a motion to approve this resolution. Judy.
Make that motion.
Oh, Mr. Mark, motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
All right, motion to approve. And a second from?
Mitch.
Mitch, thank you. This is a motion to approve resolution 2020-14. Any further questions, discussion? Roll call, please. Oh,
I'm glad that we're able to do this. I think it's terrific.
It is. Roll call, Kathy.
Hoagland,
Yes.
Coos,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Parsons,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
Casper,
Yes.
and Hinton.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Great. All right. Moving down to special order of business. We have acquisition of Daft Elementary property for park purposes.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, so this is a long-term project that we've been working on for a long time. The key element in this, to bring it to you to this point, was to receive a no further action letter. The county would receive a no further action letter from the Department of Environmental Quality. And that would then enable us to purchase it with some assurance of protection against the plume that is there. Now, Richard and I have visited a little bit about whether or not that assurance is sufficient. And he is going to bring up a little bit and discuss about a second environmental assessment on this property.
Yeah, when last we talked about this several years ago, we had retained an environmental consultant who did a level 1, and there was a very large amount of documents associated with that. And their recommendation was to continue on and do a level 2. Now there is a no action letter that is a underground storage tank no action letter. It's not a general no action letter for the entire property. So yeah, it tells you these are the conditions, and there are administrative controls put in place, deed restrictions apparently about the use of the property, other controls and some kind of restrictive covenant I haven't seen yet. Maybe you want to go forward and purchase the property with those and do no further environmental investigation. That's up to you. The contract that I updated from the last time I updated it, which was in June of 2018, retain the ability for the council to decide to go in and do a phase 2 environmental. Also requested that the school district turn over all documents associated with the property for confidential records. And you can decide whether or not to go forward once you have that information. You don't have to decide today if you want to do a phase 2 environmental, because the contract says you may do a phase 2, but it doesn't require you to. The thing that the contract does say is that closing will be in December, because if we're going to do a phase 2, we're going to need some time. So if you're interested in talking about whether or not we should do a phase 2, we can have an executive session. I wouldn't want to talk in open session about that. But if you know now that you don't want any more environmental investigation, you just want to proceed, you can say, let's just go ahead and sign the contract. I think you'd want to move up the closing date from December, because we wouldn't need that much time. I think that there's a lot here. This no action letter talks about administrative controls placed on the property. There's apparently some deed restrictions. I haven't seen them. We're going to need some time to look at it, so I wouldn't shorten the closing date, even if you don't want to do a environmental assessment level 2. I wouldn't do it any less than 90 days out. I know we've bought property recently on a rather short time frame, but I don't see the burning need to rush to acquire it. I think we should take a careful look at it. So I'd recommend you approve the contract. If you want to make an adjustment, I wouldn't pick a date. I would just say, Richard revised the contract to say something, or such closing will be December 30th or some other mutually agreed upon date. So the parties could agree to an earlier closing date. So if we decide we don't want to do a level 2 either now or at a future executive session followed by a meeting in open session, then we could just agree to an earlier closing date. So that's the only thing I'd recommend approval of the contract with the addition of add or such other date as mutually agreed upon by the parties for the closing date.
Okay. Mr. Hoagland.
I am in favor of having the opportunity to do another assessment. So is that included in what you just said, Mr. Appellant?
What I wrote in the contract is we may do a phase 2 environmental. We are not required to.
Sure.
So if we decide subsequent to signing the contract that we don't want to spend the money, I frankly haven't talked to the environmental consultant involved in this case for a while. I don't even know if they still exist as the same legal entity. You know, entities usually change and partner up with different people. So I don't know what the cost estimate is. I couldn't tell you right now. But you don't have to decide that now. You just have to decide if you want to go ahead and sign a contract. One of the things I've never understood about this is why couldn't we just sign a contract, commit to buy the property under these conditions, and then go forward and then let the conditions take care of themselves? We haven't had a signed contract, and we spent all that money on the level 1 environmental. We had no guarantee we would ever be able to acquire this property. So
The way in which the original contract was negotiated with the Lincoln County School District?
we never had a contract with the school district. I sent them a contract right after the 2015 vote to acquire the property, but they've never signed a contract. I believe that we should just go ahead and get the contract signed, let the contingencies fall where they may.
Does that contract that you've just described include the ability to discontinue, or, you know, pending?
Yes, the agreement, I sent you all a confidential email on this. The agreement does provide that if we go forward with a phase 2 environmental and our environmental consultant recommends that we not proceed, then we have the ability to not go forward with the contract. So it also gives us the ability to delay closing for 180 days in case you wanted to pursue a prospective purchaser agreement, which is the only way for you to insulate yourself from liability from DEQ.
Right, and that's what I want to protect, as this property is for a park, and I don't want to have any kind of negative things happen, you know?
Well, I think you could move forward with taking the action to approve the contract subject to modification to the closing date could be or as otherwise agreed. And then if you want to have a discussion about whether or not we should spend the money on an environmental assessment level 2, and what does the no action letter and all the conditions, because it's a conditional no action letter, what does that mean? We could talk about that in executive session and then come out and you can say, do an environmental assessment or not. But if you want to move this forward,
I want to be able to say, I want to move forward and have the executive session and talk about that. So what's the motion for that?
I would make more than one motion. I would make one motion I'd suggest someone make a motion to authorize the mayor to sign the contract with the caveat that we can move up closing if the parties mutually agree, and schedule an executive session to discuss whether or not we want to do the environmental assessment level 2.
Do you feel that signing the contract before having the discussion about the level 2 is appropriate?
Well, because you don't have to do the level 2 under the contract.
Well, I understand that, but I want to be able to do the level 2 assessment.
But there's more than one of you, so I
understand. I'm just asking what motion to make.
Yeah.
Well, I think the motion you would make is where, and I'm second guessing what you're saying. You would want the contract as he's written it.
With a caveat of
No, you don't need any caveats. He's got everything loaded in there except doing your laundry.
well, here, let me take this off. No.
He's an attorney.
Oh, thanks. All right, you're right.
I'm of course taking the most conservative approach, and so I've built into the contract an out for the council should the environmental consultant recommend to you after a level 2 that the property shouldn't be acquired.
That's in the contract currently.
If you decide after entering into that contract that you're not going to do level 2, you're taking that out away. Okay.
I do not want that out away. I want the out in.
Okay.
So the current contract is with the caveat of the level 2.
Yes, so the one that Richard has on that we would be approving tonight.
I would like to approve. I would like to make a motion to approve that contract.
Right, Richard. It has subject to the level 2, and that's why you have 180 days closing out there.
It says the council may conduct level 2, and then the closing we have an out.
Right. You were just looking for an out, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay, so I still stand with that motion
to approve the contract as the attorney has it written.
Yes.
Is there a second?
Well, I'll second that, but I have a question.
Okay, there's a second from Mr. Mark. And your question?
So I think maybe what Councilor Hogan is looking for, and I don't know that I've heard it, I think I've heard this in, I apologize, a roundabout way. But so explicitly, we would agree to buy the property. The contract would be an agreement to buy the property with the proviso that we may do the
level 2.
Level 2. And I don't want to say implicit, but part of that would be that if that assessment comes back negative, that there is a lot of work that needs to be done, that kills the contract?
We can, as there's more than one option, we can decide to go ahead with the contract knowing that there's going to be additional cost or whatever, or we can decide not to go forward.
That's what I needed to hear.
Okay.
So, okay, let me go in because I disagree with it. In normal cases, I would say yes, a level 2, and we've done that on other properties we've purchased because we were going to turn it around knowingly and have somebody else buy it and develop on it. We've used this property as a park. Your kids, my kids, grandkids, everybody's played on it forever. And that's what the community has wanted from day one, that land be a large, beautiful park with multi-uses. We've even got a bequeath to help with the development. We have a no further action letter from the DEQ. Now, I've been babysitting this thing since, I think, 2011, and through 3 different superintendents. And, one, we've asked all along for this kind of a clearing document from DEQ. So the school district has finally complied, done what DEQ has asked them to do, and the DEQ is giving a no further action required. I like to believe that if there's some nasty gas hanging around, the DEQ wouldn't give that letter. I'm not interested in holding up this any further. I want to get it, it's not good for anything. The last thing you really want as a counselor would be housing down there. It's in a flood zone, it's in a tsunami zone. It's not suitable for anything but a park, quite frankly. And I think given the information that the school district gave me on Saturday, I went down and picked up a thumb drive to make sure Mr. Appicello had everything and anything from their environmental piece on this land, that we could get comfortable in the design of the park. If there are hot spots, we can make sure that's the covered outside play court, with cement 6 feet thick, if it has to be. I don't think we need to, one, spend the money or delay any further than, 30 or 3 months. I agree with Mr. Appicello to give him plenty of time to look at title and everything else. Leave it at that. Ms. Hinton, please.
I'm inclined to agree with you, Mayor, and I just want to ask this question because we've got a letter from DEQ saying it's okay to go at level 1. If there were indicators that level 2 was needed, would that be included in the letter, Mr. Appicello?
Well, yeah, the letter is a no further action letter, which is conditional, and it says this is now basically cleaned up to a sufficient level, provided you comply with the following administrative controls, and then they have you apparently have recorded in the deed records a restrictive covenant about the use of the property and other things that we haven't seen. It really doesn't relate to the level 1, level 2 environmental investigation. We basically were having our own environmental consultant that was, our consultant, looking at what the school district's environmental consultants were saying. They were advising us, the environmental consultants for the school district were advising the school district. So that's all that was about. And our environmental consultant said, we need to get out there and do some more boring and testing and things like that. Now that was 3 years ago. It may be that what, Mayor Anderson obtained from the school district is going to show that nothing further is needed, because frankly, there was some documents submitted in December 2019 that I hadn't heard about when I read the no action letter. So their have continued to do things. So it could be that once we get a hold of these things, we decide we don't need a level 2 once we get into it. And that's why the contract says we may do a level 2, but it doesn't say we shall. And if we don't need to, because enough has been done, we don't have to go forward. But we could agree to sign the contract, and you could agree to modify the contract to say, we'll close in December unless we agree to an earlier date.
So the way the motion is, has been made, takes all that into consideration, so can move forward with within that 3 months or whatever that date is that you
Well, Riley
will
didn't
choose.
have the closing date in his motion. I would prefer that he had, so we just had that flexibility.
So could we ask him to amend his motion? Friendly amendment, Mr. Hoagland?
Of course.
So
I will amend it to include the date.
Earlier closing date if the parties mutually agree.
Provided it's after you see those documents. I mean, I don't want to be, right.
Yeah.
So yes, I will amend, yes.
Was this second also?
Oh, who was that?
Did I second it?
Yeah, you said.
I second the amendment.
Okay.
I still have a comment.
Oh, okay. Let's hear your Mr. Chandler, why don't you weigh in here?
You're muted.
I just have one quick question. This is for either Richard or Jeannie. The county has reviewed this contract or the school district has reviewed this contract and they are agreeable to those provisions as mentioned by Mr. Appicello, correct?
Correct.
Okay, that's all I needed. I just needed to confirm that that was the case.
I don't know that. I would guess that we will be discussing a mutual agreed upon earlier closing date. It would be, but they
Discuss the contract.
So as amended, that would comply with that, yeah. Let's see, Rick, do you still have another question?
I still, yeah. It's just because in that last discussion, I thought I heard two conflicting thoughts, and maybe I'm just trying to clarify. As I understand it, the DEQ assessment that the school district just got the no further action needed, that was a level 2 investigation.
No.
I thought it was.
No.
And then, but I thought Mr. Appicello said that it was not possibly as complete as it might be. I thought it was a level 2 on a certain section of land, but not the entire property.
Number one, the no action letter is a no action letter based upon an underground storage tank, which is a different kind of no action letter than an entire site, which would cover everything. So if you read the no action letter, and I'm not sure if you all had received it, it talks about this is for the LUST program, the leaking underground storage tank program. And so that limits it to that specific release. And it doesn't guarantee that the entirety of the legal description is free from other contamination. It's about that event. So that's just a different, there are no action letters that just concern the whole property and say this property is cleaned up. So this is only talking about that issue. That's just what the letter is about. But what I was suggesting is that there was some information submitted in December of last year that I hadn't heard about. So I'm curious to see what additional documentation we now have, which may go a long way toward alleviating some of the issues. And if our environmental consultant saw that data, they might say you don't need a level 2. So I don't know what's been done by their environmental consultant, but I know things have been done as recently as December of last year.
Well, and in addition to that, the school district have been working with DEQ and have had wells and test sites, all that, in conjunction with DEQ to finally get to this point. So it hasn't just been sitting for umpteen years. School districts at least taken action. And the way I interpret it is if DEQ is ready to give this kind of no further action letter, they know what the contamination is and they're comfortable, that it's, you know, as Richard said, around that oil or spill kind of thing. And it's a high water area, so every time the tide changes, we know it also floats, you know, that whole area. So, you know, and DEQ knows that. So anyway, you know, I'm comfortable with the amended motion because that gives the a closing date mutually agreed shorter. And that's certainly a possibility that, you know, as Richard looks at some of this stuff, you know, we can move on and get this thing off the table and under development. I think Jeannie needs something to do in the pandemic.
Mayor,
Yes, who's that?
it's Kathy. Kathy, can I have someone restate the motion? I think we've had almost an entire meeting since the motion was first
Well, the motion was to accept the recommended contract by Mr. Appicello with the change of the closing date to be as mutually agreed upon by both parties. You know, sooner than the December 31 as mutually agreed.
Yeah. So it would basically be authorize the mayor to sign the contract to acquire the property, with the addition that if the parties mutually agree to an earlier closing date, that we can have an early closing date.
Thank you.
All right. Any more discussion? All right, roll call, please.
Booz,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Parsons,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
Casper,
Yes.
Hinton,
Yes.
and Hoagland.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Great. Thank you. All right, how about COVID-19 update, Mr. Chandler?
So as all of you know, this is a very fluid situation. And so all the stuff I wrote last Wednesday to put in this packet is kind of all old news by now. So I am going to just give you an update on a few things that are a little bit more recent, and not only as they're dealing with the pandemic, but also as we're dealing with upcoming events that are associated with it and or are affected by it. So first of all, I met with the city managers and the county attorney today to talk about the 24-hour rule. As you know, you have been receiving and we have been receiving questions about that 24-hour rule and requests to remove that. And also one of the big questions that came is, where did it come from? Are we just making it up, or is there something behind it? I sent to you earlier today the Oregon Restaurant and Lodging Association checklist that they give to all of their entities, their members, and included on that is a provision about the 24-hour rule. And so that's part of their association's provisions with that. According to the discussion I had today, that was one of the sources that was used when discussing this rule and how it should be applied. The county commission has been very, very busy, as you know, over the weekend. And at a little after 5 today, or just before 5 today, I'd received some information from our emergency preparedness coordinators about the county commissioners' activities today. And I wanted to share with you as it's pertinent in your discussions.
Ron, could you hold just a second? Riley, could you put yourself on mute?
Oh, you guys don't want to hear my parenting?
No.
Sorry.
No. That's still not showing up as mute. There you go. Thanks.
I don't know.
Ken identified 5 things that he had noted from the county commissioners meeting today. First, they voted to keep the 24-hour rule for lodging, and if the county does go to phase 2, then it will be lifted if passed. Second, the county commissioners decided to not discuss going to phase 2 and will not discuss it this coming Wednesday. That's a change from very recently. They will discuss it at the next scheduled commissioners meeting, June 15th at 3 p.m. The Pacific Seafood has provided a list of employees who tested positive to the county public health, yet and contract. However, contact tracing has not started. I'll give you. There's a press release that just barely came out, with some additional information on that. The county commissioners also discussed about putting in place a mandatory mask policy for citizens. Wayne Belt's statement stated that the county could not create an order without the concurrence of each city. Additionally, the enforcement would be problematic and its effectiveness is questionable value. The county commissioners want to discuss this with the cities more. And then the county commissioners did vote to make it mandatory to wear masks in county buildings and facilities, and that passed. And then we received a media release an hour and a half ago, and it stated that the Lincoln County Public Health announced 1 new case of COVID-19 today. This brings the current count to 156 cases. Due to state website updating procedures, the OHA website may not match our local case reporting and could show fewer cases. A person in their 30s has been hospitalized. The case is not connected to an outbreak and it is considered community spread. Public Health is in the process of doing extensive contact tracing for all confirmed cases. Due to the large increase in positive cases over the last few days, it may take a few days for contact tracers to complete the investigation. And then they give some guidelines about if you have symptoms. Also, the economic aid and where we stand with that. The contracts are being processed. Of course, you just adopted an increase of funding. I might point out on that, with that increase of funding, we're not going to be asking for applications. We'll just be going through the next group of applications we already received. She's, as I mentioned, she's putting together the contracts. The purchase orders are coming to me today, and the checks have not gone out yet, but hopefully we'll start this step this week. In our last discussion, we talked about a face mask campaign. And by the way, the county asked us today to not use the term mask, instead to use the term face coverings. Apparently there are some specific, when you use the term mask, they refer to some specific items that are used by first responders, medical professionals, and so forth. We printed 200 no shirt, no shoes, no mask, no service posters. That's before the county asked us to not use the term. And we provided them to local businesses. These were promoted via the Explore Lincoln City business list and the Chamber of Commerce member list. The Lincoln City Chamber of Commerce is distributing the posters to all interested businesses. Education messaging has continued to be developed for our social media channels, encouraging guests to be courteous, polite, and safe. I think as everybody has seen, we have put the reader board out at the north entrance it has information about masks. And then the other questions that we have been receiving is about the 4th of July. What will it be like in that we are not hosting our own 4th of July celebrations, and how we will go forward with that. So we are expecting that we will be dealing with both legal and illegal fireworks. We have begun the campaigning as we did last year. The message is a little bit different. The message last year said, come and see the great fireworks and don't bring the illegal ones. But of course, this time it will just be don't bring the illegal ones. Let's see. Those will be going out. Some will be going through the printed, but the biggest focus, of which we had the most success last year, was through social media, and we'll continue that. The other thing is that we did purchase 2 more Polaris four-wheelers, and those are in the finishing touches of becoming police vehicles. We will still have a heavy police patrol going up and down the beaches. In the past, we've had our vehicles, our police officers have been up on the streets with 1 Polaris down on the beach. This year we'll have the 3 Polarises on the beach. The police department has a wide array of actions they can take if somebody is violating that, and we will be leaving the actions that they take at their discretion. Man, let me see here. Oh, the last thing that I have is on phase 2. The question has come, when will we apply, or when will the county apply for phase 2? And the answer that I got was, don't hold your breath. They've got other challenges that are ahead of them. This has been significant with our staff and with the people we are in contact with. Because of the 21-day time frame to go from phase 1 to phase 2, notice that a lot of people, including even our own staff members, have tied the opening to a date. We've been trying to discourage that and say there are things that have to take place. There's no guaranteed time when an application will be made. And so our message has been a little bit more, instead of saying, well, it can't happen for 21 days. It will be when these items are accomplished, thereby not setting the expectations either amongst our own operations or with people we discuss that there is a time certain when we'll move to the next phase. So Mayor, that is, oh, and one final thing, municipal court has opened. We are abiding by all the regulations associated with that, and our second week will be tomorrow. Will be our second week of opening. With that, if there are any questions.
So, Mr. Chandler, could you remind us, in public city buildings, are we requiring face coverings?
We are, but only well, yes and no. Yes, as it pertains to like court, where people are coming in. However, we are at a skeleton crew in almost all of our operations. And so we have not been requiring a mask for the few people that are in the buildings. As they start to open, we will have that in place where it's either masks or face shields. We have some ordered. They're supposed to be delivered next week. And we haven't installed them until the public starts to come in, the plastic shields that go at the entrance to the counters. We do have the hand sanitizer it's all throughout the building now, but it will be even more prevalent once it starts to open up.
Great. Mr. Apicello, you had your hand up. Do you have a COVID information?
Yes, Ron, we had received an agreement from the County Small Business Emergency Loan Fund. It was called DEV Northwest. I had sent it to the council. Now, this was the agreement that said that we send $100,000 to some not-for-profit community lending works.
Mr. Apicello, Could we hold on that? Because a couple of the councilors, I think, had some questions of Ron's update on COVID. If you could just hold that.
Okay.
All right. Diane, you had a question?
I do. It's not on COVID. It's on 4th of July.
Well, that's okay. Go ahead.
Is that okay? So I'm just wondering about, we know the city has canceled theirs, but what about Cutler City and the lake? Is there any controls that we can do on that, or what's going on? Because I get lots of questions about Cutler City.
Yeah, I do believe the Lakes program has been canceled. The other ones that we saw, like in Cutler City, are private. I'll contact the state parks and see if they can at least tell me if there have been permits that have been issued for those fireworks.
Yeah, and the lake has definitely canceled theirs. The earliest they'll do them is next year, 4th of July.
Oh, wonderful. Okay.
Ron, you might, evidently there's another one, private up Schooner Creek a ways.
Okay.
We know about the casino doing theirs for their anniversary.
Yeah, they canceled those.
Okay.
Yeah, they canceled. Let's see.
They've extended it to August 29th is when they'll be doing their anniversary.
Right. Deanna, you had a question?
Ron, when you were talking about 4th of July and you're talking about the four-wheelers, and you mentioned that in the past there's been cars in the neighborhood. Will there still be cars in the neighborhood? It's been my experience over years that we get a lot of fireworks shooting off in the neighborhood that are of the illegal version.
Yes, we'll still have our regular patrols and cars that will be stationed. Like last year, it's an all hands on deck. Nobody's taking vacation time or anything like that. So we'll still have our same contingent. One of the real big changes is that because we won't have the fireworks down in Daft, we may be able to spread out our police officers a little bit more up along the beach. The other part is that one of the things that we found was that because we had one vehicle, Polaris, out on the beach, and our police officers were up on the streets, people would come out when they didn't see a police vehicle or presence there, and then they'd fire off the fireworks and then they'd go back inside. Our intent this time is to keep the lights continually going through the patrol so that people will see the police presence throughout the entire evening.
Okay, great. And I have some more face covering things, but I can say that for my time unless you want to hear it now.
Yeah.
It's about COVID.
Well, why don't you go ahead? We might as well cover COVID now.
Okay, all right. I took some photographs. Maybe some of you have seen this, but I took photographs of the reader board sign that's on the highway now that says, "Thank you for wearing your mask." And I posted it on Facebook and 3 different sites. And just for fun, I just wanted to, well, not just for fun, I kind of wanted to get a sense of what people were thinking that are on Facebook. And overall of the 3 sites, there were 322 comments, not comments, or a lot of comments, but 3 likes, or, you know, the little icons you can push on, the little emojis. And 310 of those were either like, love, or care. And 12 of them were laughing, which I took as a no. So I think overall that just told me overwhelming support for face covering, and they liked the sign. There were a lot of comments, I have to say. So I just wanted to pass that on.
Yeah. Ron, Diane, did you have another one? Oh, okay. Ron, do you know if Public Works has the ability to take care of the graffiti on Highway 101 in the Y coming south off 18? It's an old graffiti that's not very welcoming. Not that people should be welcomed anyway, but I don't know that perhaps.
We have done graffiti removal before on state roads, and so we'll see what we can do.
Yeah, it's right just on the Y, the clover leaf as you heading south.
Okay.
Before you get on 101.
Okay.
Right. Anything else as far as an update or information on COVID-19? All right. All right, Mr. Appicello, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but we might as well get that stuff out of the way.
Just wanted to point out that ask Ron actually if the county had said anything about that agreement. I had left it with the county counsel's office. Were they willing to make any changes? But it's my understanding that the money that you just approved in a supplemental budget is not going to be sent to a not-for-profit to administer. That's not what that's for. And at this point, I've not told the county no, we're not interested. I've told them we'd like to see some changes to the agreement. Does anyone want to talk about that?
The assurances that I've received on that is, first of all, the amount is dropped down to $30,000 that's available. Each city had originally were asking for $100,000. The amount that would be coming to us has dropped, so it's $30,000. In our case, in Yahat's case, our matching portion are the funds that we're already spending. So in our case, it is the economic aid package, and there will be no requirement for us to add any more funds to that. And it will not be going through a lending institution either. It's to supplement the economic aid package we already passed. When I talked with Rachel Maddox-Hughes on Friday, she discussed making sure that the contract was changed to reflect that. And I haven't looked at Richard's email today, but that was the assurance that was left with me.
Okay. Well, I haven't heard anything yet from the county, so.
Okay.
Well, that would change quite significantly the whole impact then and the questions regarding this contract. So that would be in a good way, other than sorry that the money isn't bigger.
Okay.
Okay. All right, more to tell. Anything, we're actually into, if you'll allow me, I'd like to read a proclamation. This is at the request of the Elks, the new Elks organization in Lincoln City. And I'm always surprised that we, somehow, I guess, ratify what already exists with proclamations. But so anyway, this is a proclamation by act of Congress of the United States dated June 14th, 1777, and the first official flag of the United States was adopted. By act of Congress dated August 3rd, 1949, National Flag Day was designated each year as June 14th. The Congress has requested the President to issue annually a proclamation designating the week in which June 14th occurs as National Flag Week. Flag Day celebrates our nation's symbol of unity, a democracy in a republic, and stands for our country's devotion to freedom, to the rule of all, and to equal rights for all. We pay our respect to all the many veterans who have served the armed forces of their country. Now I, Dick Anderson, Mayor of Lincoln City, do hereby proclaim June 14th, 2020 as Flag Day, and we are the city of Lincoln City. So with your concurrence, thank you for allowing me to read that. I'll pass it on to the Elks. And I didn't check my emails this morning to see if President Trump had already declared this proclamation. So I didn't mean to get out in front of him, but I will if I can. Anyway, let's go to city manager report.
Thank you, Mayor. I had put a little bit of a very short council communication in your packet as part, really kind of the lead to this discussion. In one of our recent meetings, Councilor Casper reminded me of a project that we as staff had on our to-do list, but it got pushed aside. So I went back through and checked checked and looked at projects that we're working on, make sure we're still working on those, and I wanted to just share with you a list. There's two of them that, as I have looked at them, I'd like to actually request that we put these into a work meeting. The first is the residential parking, which we will have either at the next meeting or the first meeting in July. We have the use of the sewage reception stations. We have a request from Mr. Bruce Huckabee for a review of our tree cutting provisions of our ordinances, the villages renaming, Track 62 report to the City Council. We talked about the fireworks. The two that I would like to schedule for a work meeting is that you had a request about road changes or improvements to 8th Court. That's the very narrow road where there's been problems with people parking on that road. We've looked at it from a code standpoint. We've looked at it from a boundary standpoint. Stephanie right now is looking at it from a realignment standpoint. And I need to schedule a time when I can bring all of that back to you, because it has broader implications than just this one street. It's not the only street that's in this kind of situation. And then the other part of the meeting that I would like to bring back in a work meeting is a discussion on the municipal court. Mr. Apicello has provided the information. There's still some additional information. And I think that rather than bringing it up during a council meeting, a better form at this point might be in a work meeting. Finally, the other item that I needed to bring, the other project is social media. Currently, the city has 4 Facebook pages, two web pages, one for the city, one for Explore Lincoln City. We have Ron's Report blog. We have a monthly e-newsletter for the City Council. Explore Lincoln City has a Twitter account. It has an Instagram account. And we are prepared at this point to do a kind of a soft launch for an administrative or citywide Facebook page. So you would have a Facebook page that is for Parks and Recreation, one for the library, one for the police, one for the Explore Lincoln City, and then all other departments would feed into the citywide Facebook page. So we're prepared to move forward with that. We've developed a media policy as to who can change it, who doesn't, who's responsible for it, and so forth. So that's ready to go as well. So I guess finally, Mr. Mayor, the only real question that I have is just in setting a date when we could have a work meeting. You seem to have enjoyed and preferred the daytime work meeting, so we're prepared to do that. I've got a couple of dates. The first would be the 29th of this month, or the 20th of, well, you could do the 6th, but I wasn't planning on doing anything over the 4th of July weekend, so it would be the 20th of July.
Okay. Does anybody have a problem with the 29th of June? Okay. Judy, did you have a question?
Not 29th, but the other one, we're supposed to have a tribal meeting. We meet with the council.
Oh, thank you. If you didn't do the 29th.
Well, let's stay with that. Let's stay with
Okay.
that, Ron. How many people, does anybody have a problem with the 29th of June? All right.
Would you like it in the morning, 9 o'clock, or?
I'm retired.
Okay, so these are 2-hour limits, right?
Yes.
So
10? How about 10?
10 to noon?
10.
We can get people there at 10.
10 to noon on the 29th. All right. That's all I have, Mayor, then.
All right.
All right. Thank you, Ron. Mr. Appicello, do you have anything?
I already brought up the issue and Ron answered it. So.
Okay. Mr. Hoagland, are you okay?
Yes, I was just looking to follow up some of the social media stuff. When are we going to have that? Is the date of which our new website and like the whole comprehensive website, and then turn that back on. And then the north end sign.
You mean it's from, okay, so the update of our webpage is scheduled for next fiscal year, which begins in July. I will verify this, but if my recollection serves me, that is one of the projects that we have on hold until we know the impact to our revenues from the virus.
The sign or the website?
The website. The sign. Oh, Ed, I think you need to help me with this.
I mean, we're going on many, many years without that sign.
Ed, I think you need to help me on this one.
Yeah, we identified a wayfinding firm to do the sign and to do a comprehensive wayfinding project for Lincoln City. But again, because of COVID, those were all on hold. We have a rough design and a recommendation that we were about to share, but when COVID hit, that all got put on the back burner.
I'm adding that to my list.
Okay, that'll be good. Okay, Mr. Appicello, you have your sign back up?
Sorry?
Oh, okay. I'm assuming no public comments have come in, Mr. Chandler?
Yes, I have one.
Oh.
This came in during the course of the meeting. This is from Leah Michelson. On behalf of our youth skaters and local skaters, I would like to request the city consider allowing the locals to use this Lincoln City State skate park, or allowing all interested parties to use this outdoor park. This is an individual sport. The square footage of this park should allow ample space for individuals to practice social distancing. As a parent of 2 young skaters that have been skating this park for years, I plead to the city. The health benefits from the exercise of this sports activity have done wonders for my kids and many kids in our community. I have seen how it helps their mental health, obesity, depression, anxiety, relieve stress, and build their self-esteem, to name a few benefits, all while providing a sense of community and lasting friendships. Thank you for taking the time to read my comment. Sincerely, Leah Michelson.
So, Ron, that begs the question, maybe Jeannie is there. Is that skate parks open now, or is that a phase 2?
That is a phase 2.
Ah, okay.
And I'll send her a note tomorrow explaining that. That's one that's governed by the state.
Right. Okay. Thank you. And thanks for the comment. It's nice that people send them in. We can help. All right. How about comments from counselors?
Sure.
Go ahead.
Me?
Yep.
Okay. I just have 2 show and tells. One just for fun is, can you see that, or does it get lost?
It gets lost.
Okay, hang on just a second. It's important. Oh, geez.
No, we're going to just cut you off for time.
I know. Okay, here it comes. Sorry about that.
All right. What?
Just so everyone knows what that looks like, that sign that no shirt, no shoes, no mask. Oh, well, whoops. No service.
And those are being distributed to the businesses, aren't they? Is that what the chamber has? Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Good job. That was quick. Good job. And then just for fun, and I don't know if you can see this, but it's just of my granddaughters, and they were out on a protest walk today with about 400 other kids. But they made their own signs, and they're so cute.
And they have face covering.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, boy, they are so strict. They are so strict about COVID protection that, you know, they could put us to shame with how to deal with it. But yeah, anyway, that's all.
All right. Diane, do you have something? Nothing. Judy?
Yes, I just want to remind all of us on council that legislative priorities are coming up. They're from like A to Z, and they're due by August 7th. So, Ron, I didn't know if you wanted to hear from us individually, and then you can maybe assemble the top 10 or something, or however that would be.
Yeah, if you want to send those to me, then I'll put them together, send them back out to you. It would probably be a good thing for the council. We can put it on as an agenda to be united in what you want to pursue. If there are things that individual councilors want to, you could, speaking as a councilor, but it's always good to have something coming from the city council.
Okay.
Thanks, Judy. Mitch?
Got nothing. We pretty well covered it.
Okay. Rick?
I was glad to see the county standing firm on the 24-hour rule, and Mr. Chandler, I thought coming up with that document from the Oregon Lodging Association was brilliant. It'd be nice if the hotel owners would read their own documents. I think it's important, if only it's a way to maybe keep a little bit of a cap on the number of people coming down here, which I think might help us ease into whatever. We had quite a scare yesterday. I'm hoping that's a sort of an anomaly in the numbers. And my other, I think I had another thought there, but I just lost it. But the on the social media, and Mr. Appicello, I think this was months ago, I had found guidance from Portland, Beaverton, some other communities in Oregon on their policies as far as what comments are allowed on social media. In other words, there are actually rules as to what you can or certainly the municipalities are allowed to control the comments of social media, and because I'm concerned about the vile, the sometimes vile thing. Even during the press conference today that the county held, there was a chat going, and the comments were just vicious. And I hope that there's a way that we can keep some sort of civil tone.
I did review. Tony had me look at the IT had me look at the legal disclaimer portion. I kind of didn't like what they had. I think they had taken stuff from Newport, and I stole a lot of the revision from Beaverton. So yes, I have been looking at it, and I believe that Tony's been on top of that.
Thanks.
And to that point, aren't we? This is a no comment Facebook. Wasn't that what we were going to try?
For now, that's our soft launch approach, is that we won't have it as for comments. We'll review that a little bit later, but we want to try to make sure all the bugs are worked out of it.
All right, thank you. Mr. Hoagland.
He's in the dark.
He looks like it. Hey, Riley, are you there?
Yes.
It's your time for comments.
No, that was my comments. Sorry, my face is all messed up.
Okay, all right, thank you. That's all I have as well. Thank you all, and it's been a long day, but I appreciate you staying with us. So with that, I'll adjourn the meeting. See you later. Stay safe.
Bye, guys. Thank you.